Have you ever found yourself in that familiar grip of dread? You know the feeling, right? There's this crucial task just looming. Maybe it's that really challenging URI verbal section you absolutely have to master.
Or maybe it's that IELTS essay, the kind that needs really meticulous planning and, flawless execution.
Exactly. And yet, instead of diving in, what do? Your fingers just, instinctively reach for your phone.
Ah, yes, the endless scroll. Or getting completely lost down some YouTube rabbit hole.
Totally. And the deadline is practically flashing like a neon sign. The consequences are definitely real, but you just feel paralyzed. You can't seem to start.
It's such a universal human thing, isn't it? That baffling internal conflict. Your rational mind is practically screaming, get to work, but your actions, they lead you straight down that path of temporary comfort, even though you know deep down it's just going to mean more discomfort later.
Precisely. And that really perplexing phenomenon is exactly what we're going to try and unravel today in this deep dive. We want to move way beyond that simplistic idea that procrastination is, just laziness or bad time management. No.
It's definitely not that simple. It's actually far more complex, really nuanced, and honestly deeply rooted in our human psychology. It's all intricately connected to the sometimes surprising ways our brains are actually wired.
Yeah. So our mission today, for you listening, is to pull back the curtain on the scientific reasons behind this baffling behavior.
We'll be digging into the specific brain chemistry, those subtle emotional triggers, and the pretty profound stress responses that all kind of conspire to create this cycle.
And ultimately, our goal isn't just to tell you what procrastination is. It's really about arming you with some truly insightful understanding.
And critically, some pragmatic, really actionable strategies that you can start applying right away.
So if you're striving for that academic excellence, maybe mastering those GRE analytical writing tasks, or absolutely nailing your IELTS speaking test, or even if you're just aiming for, greater time mastery and maybe a bit more peace of mind in your daily life,
then this deep dive is definitely for you.
And to help guide us on this pretty fascinating journey into your own mind, we've pulled from a really comprehensive range of sources.
Yeah, we've got quite a mix. Everything from in-depth academic research, drawing insights from places like Humanitas University and research published by Insight Psychology,
right through to the more conversational, kind of real-world discussions and personal stories shared in communities like Reddit, which can be surprisingly insightful.
Absolutely. And we'll also be looking at some detailed analyses from productivity platforms like the Ahead app, and some really invaluable perspectives from productivity experts like Peter Lunch.
So buckle up. It's going to be, I think, a pretty illuminating exploration. Okay, so let's really try and unpack what procrastination actually is. Yeah. We tend to throw the word around pretty casually, don't we? Almost like a blanket term for just avoiding work.
We do, but our sources, especially Insight Psychology, they make it really clear that it's much more intricate than that. They define procrastination as the voluntary delay of a planned action. And here's the key part. Even when you are fully aware that postponing it is inevitably going to lead to negative consequences.
Right. So it's not necessarily about just avoiding work altogether forever. It's often more about prioritizing that feeling of short-term comfort or maybe some fleeting pleasure over achieving those really crucial, often quite challenging long-term goals.
That distinction is absolutely pivotal. It's not that you lack the ambition or even the desire to achieve your goal, like say getting that really competitive score on the GRE or IELTS. It's more that in the immediate moment, your brain quite literally opts for the path of least resistance.
Yeah, makes sense.
Think about it. Mindlessly scrolling through a social media feed or watching a quick, funny video, maybe even just tidying your desk. These things offer an instant, tangible reward.
That quick hit.
Exactly. It provides that quick hit of pleasure, that immediate relief from whatever discomfort the main task brings up. And this is in stark contrast to the often quite arduous mental effort needed for tasks like, say, memorizing a huge list of GRE vocabulary words.
Oh, yeah, those lists.
Or the meticulous, really step-by-step planning you need for crafting a well-structured, coherent IELTS essay. The immediate gratification just wins out most of the time.
And that observation takes us straight to what a lot of our sources, especially Humanitas University's guide on chronic procrastination, highlight as the emotional core of this whole thing. Procrastination, really at its heart, is fundamentally a coping mechanism.
That's a great way to put it.
It's less about a genuine lack of productivity and much more about this deep-seated reluctance to face emotional discomfort or maybe some anticipated distress that's associated with a particular task.
Yeah, the act of avoiding that task, even just briefly, it's driven by this underlying desire to just sidestep that expected unpleasant feeling.
And what's truly fascinating here, and this is something Peter Wunsch, who admits he's an ex-procrastinator himself, describes really vividly, is how our brain actually interprets these tasks. Medical imaging research like fMRI scans has actually shown that the pain centers of our brains, areas like the insula and the anterior cingulate cortex, they can literally light up. They activate when we merely think about doing a task we see as difficult or unpleasant.
Wow, just thinking about it.
Just thinking about it.
Yeah.
So if you're contemplating tackling, I don't know, a complex problem set for a linear algebra course, or maybe just brainstorming the outline for a really daunting research paper, your brain can register that thought as a kind of pain or threat. And what's our immediate instinctual response to pain?
Avoid it. Get away from it.
Exactly. It's like this primitive protection mechanism just kicking in.
And it's so insidious because the second you shift your attention away from that perceived painful task to something more enjoyable, video game, or even just a less demanding chore, that immediate pain sort of diminishes.
Right, that little sigh of relief.
That temporary relief, that instant relaxation, it feels good. And here's the real kicker. That temporary good feeling then strongly reinforces the whole cycle. It makes you more likely to avoid similar tasks again in the future.
And this is where it gets really interesting. And for me, this was a genuine aha moment reading Peter Wunsch's stuff. It's almost always just the thought or the anticipation of the task that triggers the pain.
Not the task itself.
Not the actual task itself.
Yeah.
Once you manage to push through that initial resistance, once you physically sit down and actually begin, that pain often just dissipates. In fact, lots of people report that the task itself often feels surprisingly good, maybe even engaging once they've actually started. You just have to push through those initial clouds of procrastination to get there.
Which raises such an important question then. If starting often feels good, why is that initial hurdle so incredibly hard to overcome? Exactly. It must be that immediate, really acute mental discomfort, that sense of dread or overwhelm that our primitive brain is just so desperately trying to evade.
And while procrastination isn't technically classified as a mental health disorder itself, chronic, really persistent procrastination can indeed be a significant symptom or manifestation of underlying conditions.
Right. Humanitas University, for instance, they point out its strong links to things like ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, various kinds of anxiety disorders, and also clinical depression.
And it goes even deeper sometimes. Our sources explain how perfectionism, which sounds like it should be a positive trait, right?
You'd think so.
It can paradoxically be a massive driver of procrastination, that intense fear of not producing work that's absolutely flawless, or maybe even just good enough. It activates this profound threat response in the brain, this perceived threat, this fear of failure or inadequacy. It directly leads to avoidance behaviors. It's almost like your brain says, look, if I can't do it perfectly, why even bother trying? Better to do nothing than risk imperfection.
Wow. That makes the scary amount of sense. And for people grappling with depression, that pervasive low energy, the crippling self-doubt, that general feeling of hopelessness, it can manifest as just this overwhelming inability to initiate or complete responsibilities. So it's really crucial to understand it's almost never just about being lazy or lacking willpower.
Right.
It's a highly complex interplay of these deep-seated internal states, powerful emotional responses, and even, underlying neurobiology.
Indeed. It really is a challenging and often self-perpetuating loop to get stuck in.
Yeah, the temporary relief you get from avoiding a task gives you that immediate, although very fleeting, sense of comfort, which in turn reinforces the desire to procrastinate again the next time a similar challenge pops up.
And this cycle, if it just keeps going unaddressed, it tends to compound the very emotional issues that triggered it in the first place.
Exactly. Leading to more stress, deeper anxiety, and a whole host of other emotional challenges that can seriously impact your well-being and, definitely for our listeners, academic performance.
Okay, so we firmly established procrastination isn't some abstract character flaw. It's a very real, often intense tug of war happening right inside your skull.
Right, and Insight Psychology does a fantastic job breaking this down into a core neurological conflict. It's primarily between your brain's ancient emotional limbic system.
The impulsive part.
Exactly, and its more modern, rational prefrontal cortex, the planner.
Gotcha.
So picture the limbic system as your brain's emotional and instinctual core. It's basically hardwired to seek immediate pleasure and perhaps even more powerfully to avoid immediate pain.
Okay.
So when you're faced with a challenging, unpleasant, or even just perceived difficult task, like preparing for a really rigorous comprehensive exam or diving into complex abstract concepts for a master's thesis, this ancient system just automatically fires up. Its only focus is finding the quickest, easiest path to comfort and relief. It's the part of your brain that basically just wants to chill out.
Right. And deep within that limbic system, there's this crucial player called the amygdala. Insight psychology identifies it as a central hub for processing strong emotions, particularly fear and anxiety.
The fear center.
Yeah. So if a task feels overwhelmingly difficult, maybe too large, or it triggers any kind of anxiety, your amygdala gets activated. It immediately signals a threat.
Okay.
And this steers you instinctively towards anything that offers instant relief or distraction. So when that Reddit doom-scrolling rabbit hole starts calling your name, as so many of our Reddit sources describe, it's your amygdala responding to a perceived threat from the task, basically directing you to a place of instant, albeit temporary, comfort. And it feels good, right? At least for that moment.
Precisely. And this is where dopamine, often called the brain's feel-good or reward chemical, steps onto the stage.
Ah, dopamine.
The Ahead Apps piece on neurotransmitter balance highlights how engaging in enjoyable, immediate activities, those quick social media checks, watching a funny viral video, even just snacking on something tasty, triggers a surge of dopamine release in your brain. This provides an instant chemical hit of pleasure, a burst of positive reinforcement. And unfortunately, that immediate pleasurable sensation very strongly reinforces the habit of avoiding the challenging, less immediately rewarding task.
So that's why procrastination feels so satisfying at first.
Exactly. It's a quick fix, a burst of reward, even though it often comes with a much higher, sometimes significant cost later on.
But then on the other side of this internal battle, you have the prefrontal cortex.
The rational planner.
Yeah, your brain's sophisticated chief executive, your inner adult. It's the part responsible for those higher-level executive functions like complex decision-making, meticulous long-term planning, problem-solving.
And critically, impulse control.
Right. Its main job is to keep you on track towards those bigger, more meaningful future goals, like achieving that dream GRE score or successfully finishing your academic program.
The central problem, the very essence of procrastination, really comes up when the prefrontal cortex struggles, or maybe it's just overwhelmed, in its attempt to override those immediate, incredibly powerful, instinctual impulses coming from the limbic system.
That constant internal tug of war.
Exactly. Between the emotional drive to avoid discomfort and the rational drive to pursue long-term objectives, that's truly at the core of why we delay. It's essentially your future self, the one who wants success and achievement, trying desperately to make wise decisions.
While your current self is just relentlessly craving that immediate, comforting dopamine hit.
Precisely.
And speaking of that fascinating conflict between your future self and your current self, this leads us to a really compelling concept called temporal discounting.
Yes, temporal discounting. Insight psychology describes this vividly. It's our brain's inherent, sometimes really frustrating, tendency to devalue rewards or even consequences that are far off in the future.
So the further away something is, the less emotionally impactful it feels right now.
Yes, it's remarkably straightforward in its effect, yet pretty profound in its implications. For instance, the immediate, palpable gratification of playing video games right now, in this very moment, often feels infinitely more appealing than the delayed gratification of, say, getting a good grade on an exam that's still weeks or maybe even months away.
Yeah, the future reward feels less motivating.
Exactly. The future reward, while logically important, it just doesn't feel as emotionally motivating in the present. And this isn't just theory. fMRI scan research, cited by Insight Psychology, actually gives us clear neurological evidence for this. Yeah, these scans show that the limbic system, that immediate pleasure-seeking part of your brain, overwhelmingly dominates brain activity when immediate rewards are on the table. In contrast, the prefrontal cortex, the long-term planner, it only becomes more activated when the rewards are delayed. It suggests it has to work much harder to override that immediate impulse.
Wow.
It's a very physical, measurable, neurological process unfolding right there in your brain.
So it's a genuine uphill battle, really, because that future reward, even though you intellectually understand it's important, it just doesn't pack the same immediate emotional punch as a quick dopamine rush.
Not at all.
And this constant cycle avoidance, followed by fleeting relief, then leads directly into this increasingly heightened stress response. Avoiding a task gives you that temporary relief from the initial discomfort, sure, But as anyone who's ever procrastinated knows, that relief is incredibly short-lived.
Oh, yeah.
The approaching deadline inevitably triggers this tidal wave of heightened stress, anxiety, maybe even panic.
It creates a truly vicious, self-perpetuating cycle. The initial avoidance offers a brief break from stress, but this is quickly followed by an escalation of stress and pressure as deadlines loom and the task is still sitting there, undone. And what's even more concerning is that chronic procrastination can, quite literally, start to rewire your brain over time.
Rewire it? How?
Well, it systematically strengthens the neural pathways associated with avoidance behaviors. It makes it progressively easier and more automatic to delay tasks in the future. And at the same time, it weakens those critical neural pathways that are essential for discipline, sustained focus, and effective task initiation.
Wow. And the physiological impact of this cycle isn't just psychological, is it? It's tangible, measurable.
Absolutely. Insights Psychology notes that frequent chronic procrastination significantly elevates cortisol levels. That's the body's main stress hormone.
Right, cortisol.
And persistently high cortisol levels have well-documented negative effects. They can directly impair memory, reduce your ability to focus, and diminish your cognitive flexibility.
All crucial functions you absolutely need firing on all cylinders when you're prepping for a high-stakes exam like the GRE or IELTS.
Exactly. So it's not just a feeling of stress, it's a measurable chemical change that's actively impacting your cognitive abilities.
And we can go even deeper into the specific neurotransmitters involved here, can't we?
We can. The AHEAD app, in its detailed analysis, explains that chronic procrastinators might experience what's often called dopamine dysregulation.
Dysregulation.
Yeah, it means their brains might not release enough dopamine or maybe release it inefficiently when they're just contemplating important, often challenging tasks. This can make the initiation of those tasks feel not just difficult, but sometimes seemingly impossibly difficult.
So it's not just lack of willpower, it's like a chemical hurdle.
It can feel exactly like that, a fundamental chemical hurdle your brain is throwing up.
And it's not just dopamine, is it? What about serotonin?
Good point. Low levels of serotonin, another critical neurotransmitter that regulates mood, can trigger heightened anxiety, promote negative thinking patterns, and even contribute to a sense of overwhelm, all of which just further fuels the procrastination cycle.
It's like a double whammy of neurochemical resistance.
Pretty much. It's vital to remember that our brain, at its most fundamental level, evolved to conserve energy and instinctively avoid threats to ensure survival. That was its job.
Right.
Unfortunately, in our modern academic and professional lives, it often misinterprets challenging tasks like a complex statistical analysis or an essay on a difficult philosophical concept as genuine threats.
So it sees the GRE essay as a saber-toothed tiger.
Metaphorically, yes. It triggers what neuroscientists call the threat avoidance response. And this response creates a specific neurochemical environment in your brain that inadvertently, almost automatically, favors procrastination over productivity. It's your primitive brain trying to protect you from perceived danger, even when that danger is just a demanding assignment.
Okay, so this inherent neurological tug-of-war, this constant internal battle between wanting comfort now and needing to work for goals later, it brings us right to what Peter Lunch so aptly calls the current me versus future me conflict.
Researchers often call this time inconsistency, and it's an incredibly relatable concept. It impacts almost every decision we make, really.
It truly is. Think of it this way. Your current me is almost entirely driven by immediate gratification.
Right now.
Yeah, it's the part of you craving that delicious sugary cookie or wanting to just dive into engaging video games right now. Your future me, though, is the visionary, the planner. It prioritizes the long-term rewards like being healthy and fit, or specifically for our listeners, achieving that outstanding score on the GRE or IELTS that unlocks future opportunities.
And this inherent, often frustrating time inconsistency within our own psychology is just a massive culprit behind why we tend to delay important tasks.
Totally. Your future you desperately wants to pass that exam with flying colors, but current you just wants to keep scrolling or binge watch that show.
It's true. Current me can be a real short-sighted, maybe even irresponsible friend to future me, can't they?
Yeah. Future you might worry about long-term health things like heart disease or the professional consequences of being stuck in a job you hate.
But current me often thinks, those problems are years away. Current me doesn't have to worry about that.
Exactly. It's this powerful, maybe even frustrating evolutionary quirk that consistently undervalues future rewards in favor of immediate, often fleeting, gratification.
And what's really fascinating is how this universal human tendency, this deeply ingrained behavior of procrastination, is perceived, understood, and even managed so differently across various cultures.
Ah, that's interesting.
Yeah, the Ahead App's blog highlights in detail how distinct cultural frameworks significantly influence not only how we see procrastination, but also the societal responses to it.
Okay, so how does that play out?
Well, in collectivist societies, places found predominantly in East Asia, Latin America, or many parts of Africa, procrastination isn't just seen as like a personal failing or a quirk of your individual character. Instead, it's viewed fundamentally through the lens of group harmony and collective responsibility.
Okay, so it's about how it affects others.
Exactly. In these cultures, the primary concern often revolves around how your individual delay or inaction might negatively impact your family, your colleagues, your study group, or the broader community.
Right.
Take Japanese culture, for example. Procrastination that impacts others can be deeply tied into the concept of meiwaku, basically, the act of causing trouble or inconvenience to others.
Ah, okay.
So here, procrastination isn't just a personal time management issue. It becomes a potential breach of social harmony, of collective responsibility. Similarly, in many Latin American contexts, delaying tasks that impact family obligations carries the significant weight of collective disappointment, not just individual setback. The emphasis is really on the interconnectedness of actions.
So it makes sense then that in these societies, they often develop unique, sometimes informal group accountability systems specifically designed to prevent or lessen procrastination.
Precisely. These might include regular family check-ins on progress or community-based deadline structures where the collective expectation and shared responsibility help keep individuals on track. It's a fundamentally different approach compared to what many of us in more individualistic societies are used to.
Yeah, definitely. So how does it look in those individualist societies, like North America, Western Europe?
Right. In stark contrast, individualist societies frame procrastination quite differently. Here, it's almost exclusively viewed as a personal failure, a lack of self-discipline, not enough willpower, or simply poor individual time management. The consequences of procrastination are seen primarily in terms of individual achievement, individual productivity, individual success or failure.
And that cultural perspective totally explains why, in places like the US or the UK, there's this enormous, thriving industry built around fighting procrastination, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Think about it. The endless array of productivity apps, the countless time management seminars, shelves packed with self-help books, they almost overwhelmingly focus on enhancing individual willpower, developing personal organizational systems, and optimizing personal efficiency. The underlying assumption is that with the right tools, the right mindset, and enough personal commitment, you, as an individual, can overcome procrastination purely through your own efforts.
Right. The focus is internal.
Exactly. And individualist cultures tend to lean much more heavily into technological solutions and fancy environmental design strategies to foster better individual decision-making and productivity.
Okay. But the Ahead app suggests maybe the best approach is blend these.
Yes, that's what they thoughtfully suggest. The most truly efficacious, meaning effective approaches often manage to blend insights from both perspectives.
So the powerful takeaway isn't really about choosing one cultural approach over the other.
Not at all.
It's more about intelligently leveraging the strengths of both. So you could consciously adopt that collectivist practice of considering how your procrastination impacts others, your study partners, your project team, maybe even your own future you, who's going to bear the brunt of your delays right now.
Yeah, that can provide a remarkably powerful, often overlooked source of motivation.
And then you combine that with the practical individual strategies, the personal tools, the systems, the self-discipline techniques for effective real-world implementation.
This kind of cross-cultural approach offers a remarkably nuanced understanding. It recognizes that procrastination isn't just about personal habits or brain chemistry in isolation.
Right.
It's also about navigating this complex interplay of broader cultural expectations, deeply ingrained social obligations, and your own unique individual needs.
Understanding these diverse perspectives helps us develop more comprehensive, maybe more empathetic, and ultimately far more effective strategies for managing our time, meeting our commitments, and achieving our goals in our increasingly interconnected, globalized world.
It's a pretty profound insight into the human condition itself, really.
Okay, so we've journeyed pretty deep into the why of procrastination, peeling back layers from brain chemistry to emotional triggers, even cultural nuances. Now, for the really crucial part, what tangible actions can you actually take to tackle this?
The practical stuff.
Exactly. Let's start with some neuroscience-backed quick resets. The AHEAD app's guide on neurotransmitter balance gives us some brilliant, immediately applicable, like 5-minute techniques designed to literally reset your brain chemistry.
Yes, these are specifically designed to naturally boost those crucial dopamine and serotonin levels right when your motivation feels like it's completely tanked. First up, a movement microburst.
Okay, sounds energetic.
It is, and it's deceptively simple but incredibly effective. Something as brief as, say, 20 jumping jacks or even just a vigorous 60-second dance to your favorite upbeat song can rapidly increase dopamine production in your brain.
Just 60 seconds.
Just 60 seconds. It quickly jumpstarts your motivation circuits, directly counteracting that lethargic, stuck feeling. It physically shifts your state.
I love that. Get your body moving, trick your brain into feeling more energized and ready to go. What else?
Another fantastic quick reset is the breath reset. Try practicing the 4-7-8 breathing technique.
Okay, how does that work?
You inhale deeply through your nose for 4 counts, hold that breath gently for 7 counts, and then slowly exhale completely through your mouth for 8 counts.
In 4, hold 7, out 8. Got it.
Yep. Doing this for just about 5 cycles can help balance your oxygen levels, calm your nervous system right down, and trigger a neurotransmitter release that actively counters those feelings of anxiety and overwhelm often tied to procrastination. It's a quick mental break that effectively rebalances your internal state.
Nice. Simple, but sounds powerful.
Absolutely. Then there's strategic reward priming. This involves a clever little psychological trick.
Oh, intriguing.
You physically place a small, healthy, appealing treat, maybe a piece of good dark chocolate, a handful of nuts, a small juicy fruit right there at your workspace. But here's the crucial rule. This treat is only to be enjoyed after you've completed a very specific, focused work period, maybe 25 minutes using the Pomodoro technique.
Ah, so you see it there, tempting you.
Exactly. This creates a powerful dopamine anticipation loop in your brain. It helps overcome that initial resistance and makes starting the task significantly more appealing and less, well, daunting.
That's incredibly clever. Leveraging your brain's natural reward system. Okay, what's the last one?
Finally, a sensory switch. This involves intentionally changing your immediate environment using sensory cues.
Like how?
It could mean introducing an energizing scent, maybe peppermint or citrus oil, or adjusting the lighting in your workspace, making it brighter, changing the color temperature, or even using productivity-enhancing background sounds like classical music or nature sounds.
Okay.
These small changes can actually help create new neural pathways that effectively bypass the anxiety and resistance often associated with starting uncertain or difficult tasks. It's about sending a clear signal to your brain. Okay, time to shift gears and focus.
These micro-interventions sound powerful because they're immediate, accessible, and actually based on the science of shifting your brain's state.
Exactly. Now, beyond these quick resets, one of the most fundamental, tried and true strategies for tackling procrastination echoed across all our sources, Humanitas University, Reddit, Clockit, Start My Wellness, is simply breaking down the task itself.
Ah, the classic advice.
Classic for a reason. The reason it works is that large, seemingly insurmountable tasks are just profoundly overwhelming to our brains.
They truly are. Trying to approach, say, writing a comprehensive 10-page research paper for your GRE analytical writing component all at once, it feels utterly impossible, right?
Completely daunting. Insight Psychology highly recommends a technique called time chunking.
Time chunking, okay.
This involves breaking that formidable, daunting task into much smaller, more manageable segments. So instead of thinking, I need to write a 10-page report, you reframe it as, okay, I will write just 1 page in the next 20 minutes.
Much less scary.
Exactly. It significantly reduces your brain's perception of the task as overwhelming, making it much, much easier to actually initiate. You're simply making that first step less painful.
And building on that, there's that popular rule, often discussed on Reddit, the less than 2 or 5 minutes rule.
Oh yeah, I like that one.
The idea is simple. If a task takes under that short time frame, like sending that quick email, putting away your notes, scheduling a meeting, just do it immediately. Don't even think about it.
It cleverly leverages your brain's natural impulse, but for productive ends. And Peter Lunch suggests another powerful psychological trick, the just 5 minutes rule.
Just 5 minutes.
Yeah, tell your brain, okay, I'm only going to commit to working on this task for exactly 5 minutes. Often, that initial momentum you generate just by starting, however briefly, will carry you through. you'll likely find yourself working much longer than you initially intended.
Right, because the hardest part is often just starting.
Absolutely. Getting over that initial hump.
That initial momentum is totally key. Once you get going, it's like a snowball effect. Another incredibly powerful tactic is to create immediate, tangible rewards and consequences for yourself.
Yes. Peter Lunch is a big advocate of temptation bundling.
Temptation bundling. Sounds fun.
It's a brilliant strategy. It involves intentionally combining a dreaded or unappealing task with an activity you genuinely enjoy.
Okay, give me an example.
For example, you only allow yourself to listen to your favorite podcast or stream that gripping TV show while you're doing your cardio workout, or tackling some prosaic, meaning mundane or boring chores around the house, like dishes or folding laundry.
So you link the reward directly to the unpleasant task.
Precisely. You're effectively making the dreaded task the gatekeeper to something you truly desire, creating a strong positive association.
Clever. And what about the flip side? Consequences.
Right. For consequences, consider implementing commitment devices. This involves creating immediate, tangible, negative repercussions for procrastination.
Like what? Grounding yourself.
Maybe not quite grounding yourself, but Peter Lunch offers compelling examples like paying up front for a tutoring session for your GRE prep. The financial cost of missing that session becomes immediate and tangible, a strong motivator.
Okay, that makes sense. Money talks.
Or committing to work on a specific IELTS practice test with a friend at the library. If you don't show up, you're not just letting yourself down, you're letting your friend down. That external pressure can be very powerful.
Yeah, more motivating than just promising yourself sometimes.
Often much more motivating.
Crucially, we shouldn't forget the power of positive reinforcement. After completing a task or reaching a significant milestone, even a small one, like finishing a difficult paragraph, give yourself a planned, immediate reward. This positive reinforcement works to strengthen those productive behaviors and directly satisfies your brain's craving for dopamine.
Right. It helps your brain associate the hard work with pleasure, making productivity a more sanguine, meaning optimistic and positive habit over time.
Definitely need more sanguine habits. Okay, what about our environment and mindset?
Hugely important.
Yeah.
Shifting your physical environment and your internal mindset is profoundly crucial. Creating a distraction-free environment is paramount for focused work.
Tell me about it. The phone.
Exactly. As Peter Lunch, various Reddit users, and platforms like Clock It All emphasize, you have to actively identify and then systematically eliminate common distractions. Your phone, social media notifications, alluring games, even just cluttered workspaces.
So practical tips.
Simple strategies like putting your phone in another room while you work, or using website blockers like the Self-Control app can make a monumental difference.
I know that almost automatic urge to reach for my phone every few minutes. One Reddit user shared a fantastic tip. They charge their phone in a separate room overnight.
Smart.
And they make a firm rule not to even look at it until they're ready to leave the house, or they've completed their absolute top priority task for the day.
That simple act saves your valuable focus and precious dopamine reserves for what you need to do first, rather than instantly wasting it on digital distractions. That's a remarkably powerful strategy for setting the tone for your entire day.
Definitely trying that one. What other strategies?
Another key one is do the hardest task first. Tackle the most formidable, the most challenging task at the very beginning of your day.
When you have the most energy.
Exactly. This is when your mind is typically freshest, your willpower reserves are strongest, and your cognitive energy is at its peak. As Peter Lunch persuasively argues, conquering your most daunting task early creates immediate momentum.
Right, that feeling of accomplishment.
Precisely. A feeling that can powerfully carry you through the rest of your day, making subsequent tasks feel significantly easier.
Yeah, and Peter Lunch makes a great point about making it incredibly simple for your current self to actually start.
How so?
He suggests this. The night before, take a sticky note and write down your top 3 priorities, your most important tasks for tomorrow.
Okay.
As soon as you sit down to work the next morning, before you even open your email, before you get coffee, just start on the hardest of those 3 tasks. No excuses, no preamble. Just begin.
I like that. Cuts through the hesitation. And another very significant mindset shift, one that can fundamentally alter your relationship with challenging tasks, is to reframe the task.
Reframe it. How?
Instead of engaging in that negative self-talk like, ugh, this GRE essay is too hard, or I'm terrible at this type of math problem, Insight Psychology and Humanitas University strongly suggest consciously reframing it with positive associations. Try thinking, okay, this is an opportunity to learn a new skill, or completing this will make me stronger and more capable.
So finding the positive angle.
Exactly. This deliberate positive association actively reduces your limbic system's inherent resistance. And this process requires challenging those common cognitive distortions, as highlighted by Start My Wellness.
Cognitive distortions, like what?
Like catastrophizing. That's when you assume the absolute worst case scenario will definitely happen, or overgeneralization, where one negative experience makes you think all future ones will be bad too.
Ah, right. So you're essentially tricking your brain, or maybe retraining it, to see the task as less threatening and more like an opportunity for growth.
Precisely. And finally, and this is truly paramount for long-term progress, cultivate self-compassion.
Be kind to yourself.
Yes. Humanitas University and Insight Psychology emphasize the profound importance of self-forgiveness and kindness. When you inevitably stumble or procrastinate, because it will happen, avoid that harsh self-criticism. Self-criticism only exacerbates stress, anxiety, and guilt, which ironically just perpetuates the procrastination cycle.
Is it worse?
Exactly. Self-compassion, on the other hand, fosters resilience, encourages a growth mindset, and promotes consistent, sustainable progress.
And to really support that cultivation of self-compassion, things like meditation or mindfulness can be really helpful.
Incredibly beneficial. As some Reddit users wisely pointed out, just focusing on your breath and observing your thoughts without judgment allows you to identify the specific triggers and automatic thought patterns that lead to procrastination. This awareness, coupled with a non-judgmental stance, can naturally reduce that overwhelming urge to procrastinate. It's about being present and aware without getting sucked into the emotional spiral that often leads to delay.
Okay, so we've covered those quick brain resets and immediate strategies you can use in the moment. But what about building truly lasting change? How do we make sure procrastination doesn't just keep rearing its ugly head, forcing us back to square one?
Yeah, the long game. Let's start by revisiting an incredibly efficacious, meaning effective and widely popular time management method, the Pomodoro technique.
Ah, the Pomodoro, the timer method.
Exactly. As detailed across multiple sources like Insight Psychology, Peter Lunch, and Clockit, it's deceptively simple yet profoundly powerful. You work in highly focused, uninterrupted 25-minute intervals, followed by a mandatory 5-minute break. After you complete 4 of these Pomodoros, you take a longer break, maybe 15-30 minutes.
Okay.
This method imposes these short, manageable bursts of discipline. It makes even the most arduous or intellectually demanding task seem far less overwhelming and much more approachable.
It's not about working for hours on end.
Not at all. It's about committing to just 25 focused minutes at a time.
And a critical element of the Pomodoro technique is what you do during that 25-minute focus period, right?
Absolutely key. You make a note of any distractions that pop into your head, a sudden urge to check email, a thought about dinner, but you absolutely do not act on them immediately.
You just jot them down.
Jot them down. Address them later during your break or after your work session. This powerful practice not only trains your brain to stay engaged on the task at hand, but it also helps you systematically identify your biggest time wasters and procrastination triggers. It's a complete game changer for deep focus and productivity, especially for tasks needing sustained concentration, like preparing for the analytical writing section of the GRE.
Definitely. Okay, beyond individual techniques, what about involving other people?
Ah, yes. There's immense, often underestimated power in establishing accountability partnerships.
Accountability partners.
The Ahead App's blog makes a very compelling case for this. When we make a commitment to another person, our brain treats that commitment fundamentally differently, with greater importance, greater obligation than it does promises we make just to ourselves.
That makes sense. You don't want to let someone else down.
Exactly. It leverages a deep, innate psychological principle within us.
It's absolutely true. Just knowing someone else is expecting something from you can be a huge motivator. Finding the right accountability partner is key, though, isn't it?
Crucial. You need someone reliable, someone who is non-judgmental, but also supportive yet firm.
Someone who won't let you off the hook too easily.
Exactly. But also someone who won't shame you when you inevitably struggle. And compatible work styles can help maybe someone who understands your specific struggles, like as an IELTS student, or offers complementary strengths to your own.
Okay, so once you have a partner, what's next? How do you structure it?
Creating a truly structured system is paramount. First, set clear, measurable goals with very specific timeframes.
Be specific.
Very specific. Instead of a vague goal like work on my G project more, aim for something concrete like complete the first draft of Chapter 3 by Friday at 3 p.m. or finish 3 full IELTS reading passages with 80% accuracy by Tuesday evening.
Okay. Removes the ambiguity.
Totally. It creates undeniable, tangible checkpoints for accountability.
And this is where it can get really interesting and maybe surprisingly effective, introducing meaningful consequences.
Consequences.
Yeah, but they should be significant enough to genuinely motivate action, but not so severe that they damage the partnership or create tons of stress.
Okay, like what?
For example, the Ahead app suggests agreeing to donate, say, $20 to a cause you don't support if you miss a deadline.
Ooh, that's clever and painful.
Right. Or, for students, maybe committing to taking on an unpleasant task for your partner if you fail to meet your study goal. That definitely adds a layer of motivation beyond just internal discipline.
Absolutely. And conversely, it's vital to establish clear rewards for positive behavior and for achieving milestones.
Celebrate the wins.
Celebrate the wins together, however small they might seem. This positive reinforcement loop creates a healthier, more positive relationship with productivity and helps sustain motivation through those challenging periods.
And our sources also remind us to prepare for setbacks, right? Like having a reset protocol.
Yes, planning for inevitable stumbles. Having a plan for getting back on track prevents minor setbacks from completely derailing the entire system.
And we see real-world examples of this working all the time. Writing partners doubling their output, entrepreneurs making consistent progress, students like you achieving significantly higher grades through these kinds of study partnerships.
It's an incredibly effective strategy because it taps into our social nature and our inherent desire to fulfill commitments made to others.
Definitely powerful. Okay, finally, for true long-term mastery over procrastination, it really comes down to developing a solid, repeatable daily routine that supports your goals.
Yes. And this begins with acutely spotting your procrastination triggers. Peter Lunch insightfully explains that procrastination, like any ingrained habit, has specific cues or triggers that can instantly send you spiraling.
Like what kind of cues?
For example, sitting down at your study desk, opening your laptop, and immediately, almost instinctively, opening a social media tab. That's a classic cue leading straight into a procrastination spiral.
Yeah, the automatic habit loop. You absolutely need to become like a detective of your own habits. Identify precisely what triggers that unproductive YouTube session or that sudden urge to check email for the 10th time in 5 minutes.
And once you identify that cue, you can actively and consciously swap the unproductive habit for a productive one.
Replace the bad habit.
Exactly. This is about systematically rewiring your brain using that classic cue routine reward loop. When that specific trigger appears, instead of falling into the old pattern, you consciously implement a pre-planned productive routine.
Okay.
And then, crucially, you reward yourself immediately after completing that productive action, even with something as simple as a mental attaboy or a tag girl. This proactive habit swapping is a truly pivotal step in ameliorating, meaning significantly improving or lessening chronic procrastination.
Pivotal, I like that.
Yeah.
And Peter Lunch offers a specific system for this long-term routine building.
Yes, he calls it getting results the agile way. It brilliantly breaks down your goals into this cascading structure.
Okay, how does it work?
You start with 3 overarching yearly goals, then you break those down into 3 monthly goals, then 3 weekly goals, and finally 3 daily goals.
3 daily goals. That sounds manageable.
It does. This disciplined framework forces critical prioritization and establishes clear constraints, which are incredibly powerful tools to keep your focus laser sharp and prevent overwhelm.
What I love about that system is its simplicity. Complexity often just leads to more procrastination itself, right?
Totally. You focus on your absolute top 3 priorities for the day, ideally tackling the hardest, most formidable one first when your energy and willpower are highest.
Right.
You repeat this focused process daily, consciously moving any unfinished tasks in the next day's list. And crucially, you reflect weekly on what truly worked well and what needs refinement, what needs to be tweaked or improved for the next week.
That consistent, iterative, self-correcting approach sounds like exactly what builds lasting habits that actually stick.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It acknowledges that breaking long-standing procrastination habits takes time and consistent effort. Peter Lunch suggests giving yourself about 3 months of diligent adjustment and practice.
3 months, okay.
But the profound and significant changes that result are truly life-altering.
Yeah.
It's about consciously and methodically training your brain for sustained success, not just in your studies, but really in all aspects of your life. Hashtag outro.
Wow. So we've covered an incredible amount of ground today in this deep dive. We started by really trying to debunk that pervasive myth that procrastination is just laziness.
Yeah, revealing it instead as this highly complex interplay of intricate brain chemistry, powerful emotional triggers, and our body's ingrained stress responses.
We really pulled back the curtain on that fascinating, often frustrating battle happening inside your own mind. The ancient emotional limbic system constantly fighting for dominance against your rational prefrontal cortex.
We saw how dopamine, that alluring feel-good chemical, plays such a starring role, often leading us to choose instant gratification over those more significant but delayed rewards.
And we gained, I think, a deeper appreciation for how this isn't just about individual willpower. It's also profoundly influenced by broader cultural expectations and how we see our responsibilities within a community.
Absolutely. And most importantly, we didn't just diagnose the problem. We aimed to arm you with a comprehensive toolkit of truly pragmatic, actionable strategies you can start implementing, like today.
Right. From those neuroscience-backed quick resets like movement bursts and breath work to effective methods for breaking down daunting tasks, using immediate rewards and consequences, and systematically optimizing your environment and your mindset.
And we also explored the immense, often untapped power of accountability partnerships and the crucial role of building robust, consistent daily routines.
This isn't just about managing your time, is it? It's really about empowering you to actively reset your brain chemistry, regain profound control over your time and productivity, and build genuine, lasting resilience against that urge to delay.
And remember this vital insight as you move forward. Every single small step you take toward action, every decision to begin instead of delay, quite literally rewires your brain for success.
Yeah, it's powerful.
It consciously strengthens those neural pathways dedicated to discipline, focus, and purposeful action, while simultaneously weakening those old ingrained neural circuits that drive avoidance.
So consider this provocative thought as you start integrating these strategies into your life. If your brain is inherently designed to be constantly learning and adapting, what new, maybe extraordinary possibilities open up for you when you consciously and consistently train it towards discipline, sustained effort, and long-term fulfillment, rather than just momentary comfort?
Yeah, how might truly mastering this fundamental aspect of your own psychology not just dramatically improve your studies and help you conquer that GRE or IELTS exam,
But profoundly engender meaning. Create or give rise to a far greater sense of purpose, self-efficacy, and enduring achievement in every single area of your life.